Welcome to the Chronic Warriors podcast with Cassandra A. Campbell.
A platform to share,
Hear,
and cheer chronic illness warriors.
Just know that when you made your commitment to your partner, you took their whole selves.
To be able to have a bad day, to be able to say, do you know what, I can't cope no more.
I am a chronic warrior because every day I wake up and I'm so glad to still be here.
Hello Warriors, welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneur Chronic Warriors. I'm really honoured to introduce Natalie Gonzalez as my special guest today. Hi Natalie.
Hello Cassandra.
How are you doing?
I'm well today, actually. Today's one of my better days.
Oh, great
It
stuff.
really is.
I'm glad to hear that, because we all know every day is different.
Definitely.
So how about you share with everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 36 years old today.
Happy birthday! I can't believe you're doing this with me on your birthday. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You really are. And I'm so glad to have met you and, to be a part of everything that you've been offering, from your courses now to the podcast. I'm really glad that you asked me to be a part of it.
You're so welcome.
I'm glad to be able to help in any way. I really am.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Really and truly. So, as I was saying, I'm 36. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the hypermobile type, as well as POTS, TMJ, fibromyalgia, arthritis, gallstones, and fibroids. So it's quite an eclectic mixture of conditions.
Mm-hmm. That's a bit of a list there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a headache to remember sometimes when I go to appointments and they say, okay, have you got anything? And I start to list them out on my fingers and think, oh, is that everything? And they'll look at you like, are you sure? But yeah, it's all going on. Mm-hmm. It really is.
I hear that.
I work part-time, which is good. And then I also have a little side business, side hustle, which brings me joy. And it was born out of this condition, I suppose. I used to be quite active and more creative. So I used to bike ride and ice skate, roller skate. And as it got more difficult to be able to do these things, I tried to look for a new venture, something that I could do that wouldn't cause me aggravation or cause me to need downtime afterwards, recovery periods. And that's how I learned to crochet. And it kind of just took off from there. And funnily enough, I could crochet for hours and I don't get any pain in my wrists or fingers. But yet when I was playing piano, just minutes after just trying to do scales, my wrists and fingers would be so painful and aching. And so I'm glad I've managed to find an outlet, a distraction from the pain, I suppose.
Sounds great. Yeah. And you turn that into a business.
Yes, I have. And that in itself took me by surprise because I literally just started it as a creative outlet, I suppose. And it just kind of took off from there. And I've got lots of new ideas and it just kind of spirals from there. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the ride.
That's brilliant. And it's really great. They say about turning your passion into a business. And even if it wasn't your passion necessarily to start off with, it was something that you enjoyed doing. So to be able to turn that into a business, I just think that's just the ultimate for me.
Yeah.
Just to say, what I do it because I love to do it. I know I have the skill to do it, but I also love to do it. So to be able to do it as a business, it's just ideal for me. So I love that. So when did you first start having symptoms that impacted your life?
Right. So in all honesty, when I spoke to my mum, when I was first diagnosed, and I spoke to my mum about the diagnosis, it kind of fell into place for her a bit because she kind of remembered when I was born, my limbs were quite floppy. I mean, I was born premature and I was breech as well. And I remember she told me that the doctor said to her that they don't think I would be able to walk because at the time they didn't realize, but my legs were in such a funny position. They were like bent over my shoulders at the time. and they thought I didn't have any knees. Like kneecaps didn't develop. So they told my mum they didn't think I'd ever be able to walk. After they gave me physio, because I was in hospital for a very long time as a baby, and I ended up walking, but she said she knew there was something that wasn't quite right. But, you know, as a kid, you know, I grew up fairly normal. I struggled, especially when it came to PE and playing games and stuff, but I just thought that was me. I think the first kind of major symptom for me was when I was 15 and I got on the bus to go to school. And just as I went to sit down, my left kneecap dislocated. At the time, I didn't know it was a dislocation. I knew like something had come out of place. But I remember sitting there trying to like push this thing back in, and it was so painful. And I remember I get off the bus at the last stop, and that's when I called out to the driver. And I remember at the time, it's so different now because you've got like lady bus drivers and such a mixture of people. But this guy was so gruff and horrible. And I remember he didn't talk to me. He just looked and then got off the bus. And then the next thing I knew, police had come. Then the police called the ambulance and they gave me, I think, gas and air and tried to move me off the bus. It was like a living nightmare.
Hang on a minute. Sorry, can I just pause you there? Did you say the police came?
Yes.
So the bus driver called the police?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah.
For what reason?
I have no idea. I remember because I used to get off at the very last stop and then we had to walk like, I don't know, it's quite a way anyway, from the last stop to the school. So when it got to the last stop, any other kids that was going to that school got off because I always sit downstairs. And I remember I called out to him and said, I need help, you know, I've hurt my knee. And I remember he got out of the cab, he came and looked at me. He didn't even say anything. And then he just walked off, got off the bus and went into the bus garage. And that was it. I never saw him again. And then next thing I knew, 2 police officers came from somewhere, came on the bus and was speaking to me. And then they called the ambulance.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyways, sorry, I know I interrupted you. I just had to ask about it. I just didn't understand the connection between you being on the bus and not being able to move and calling out to the bus driver to the police turning up. I just needed to explain that one for me because it just didn't connect. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so that's when the kind of first major symptom really, and then from there it was recurrent dislocations of that same kneecap, constant visits to the hospital, and it was a case of x-ray, they would look at it, nothing's broken, have some physio, and that was it for 10 years plus. I was missing time off school, so I used to have my work sent home to me. Going to college was difficult as well, and being on crutches. And I think over the years, I was just being told, you know, it's growing pains, you're playing too much exercise. Then as it got more difficult for me to do my usual, it was a case of, oh, you're putting on weight, so you need to exercise more. There was always an explanation for what was going on, and it was just never the right explanation. And it wasn't until I became an adult and after working full time for a long time and being in such pain at the end of every shift, I just thought, you know what, something more is going on. There has to be, because it's not normal for someone to be in so much pain just from going to work. And that's when I done a bit of research myself, and I found a doctor who specializes in rheumatology, and he basically put all the pieces together. From the minute I started explaining, he knew, and he examined me, and that's how I got my diagnosis. And I think, if I remember correctly, that was 2012.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so much of what you said resonated with me. The whole thing of inner childhood, oh, it's just growing pains and being fobbed off and dismissed, and the impact on your education and all of that just resonates with me so much. I'm learning over the past few years that is such a similar story for so many people with EDS and fibromyalgia. It's just, wow, yeah. It's just funny. Sorry, when I'm hearing you say these things, and it's just making me think about my own journey, experiences as a child, and not being diagnosed and all of that. It's just right. So you got diagnosed, and How did you move forward, career wise? How did that impact you?
Right. So for me, once I got my diagnosis, the doctor I saw, he was brilliant. And, he said he'd write to my GP and advise them. And so you'd get the ball rolling. And what I found is ever since then, any kind of ache or pain or something that I have and I go to my GP with, it's like, oh yeah, it's down to EDS. And I kind of found that became almost a barrier in itself. It's like, you didn't diagnose me with this condition, but now that I've got it and you know about it, everything subsequently now you're putting down to EDS. So it's been a bit of an uphill battle sometimes. Career-wise, I've had to chop and change a lot. My mind tells me that, you can do full-time, you can do the overtime too. And I'll start off good. And then 2 weeks into it, I'm failing miserably. My body, my mind, my spirit can just end up feeling so crushed, because it's like I can tell myself, I can do it, because on my good days, I feel like I could climb mountains. But then I realize, hang on, I can't. So I've had to cut back a lot of my working time, and I do part-time work now. And even though it's part-time, there's still areas that I need to cut down on, because it's taken a long, long time for me to recognize what I can manage and what I can't. So even though before I was saying, yeah, I just do part-time, I realized not all part-time is part-time. So for me, working Monday to Friday part-time hours may seem small to some people, but for me, it's still a big challenge, getting up, getting ready and going out 5 days a week. So I do 4 days, and for me, that's my limit. Now, I do make myself available for overtime, and I do accept it sometimes, even when I know that I shouldn't. And I must admit, sometimes I do feel pressured into having to do the overtime. But I have been learning to say no and to be putting myself first, because at the end of the day, when I come home and I'm struggling to sleep, I'm in so much pain, my work colleagues, they're not there to see that. They're not there to see the end results of me working their overtime, So it's having to find that balance.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's affected my career choices, because there's so many more things that I wanted to do, to study. And sometimes I feel bad, and I feel like maybe I've let myself down in a way that I haven't done as much as I could have. But slowly, I think, this last year in particular, it's kind of taught us that life is very precious. And if you want something, go for it, because you never know what tomorrow may bring. So I'm trying to do more home-based courses and advance myself in that way, so that I can continue to learn and give myself more options, that maybe I can work for myself full-time from home, and keep doing the things that I love.
Yeah. It's really interesting, because when you were talking about overtime and work, it took me back to when we first met on the self-care challenge course.
Yes.
And that being one of your challenges is being able to say no, putting yourself first and being kind to yourself, which, we all know it's not always easy, but I'm glad that you are still working on that and finding that balance and learning to put yourself first and be kind to yourself, because it's something that some of us have to learn to do. It doesn't come naturally.
Yes, definitely.
And that whole thing of not being too hard on ourselves and actually praising ourselves and acknowledging ourselves for the things that we do when we can do them.
Yes.
Rather than beating ourselves up for the things that we can't do. It's really about us doing what we can manage. And that in itself is what makes us warriors, because we do what we can manage. We don't give up on ourselves. We keep going, but it's important to have that balance. I'm glad that's still something that you're living your life by and trying, continuing to work on, because it is really important. So you spoke about, doing the crocheting and enjoying it. What made you decide to do it as a business?
It happened quite by accident. I remember when I was teaching myself, I decided to make a baby blanket as one of the first things. And after I made it, I didn't have anyone to give it to. So I thought I'd put it up for sale on eBay, and it sold. And I was like, okay, this could be something. And I thought, okay, let me make another one. And I've done it and I put it up online and it's sold. And I was like, okay, I see where this is going. And I just started making more and more stuff and people were buying it. So I was like, this is great. Yeah. Because I enjoyed it, and I started looking at more patterns and getting more ideas and more trips out to Hobbycraft. And I was like, yeah, you know, maybe this could work. And I don't know, I just kept getting more and more ideas, and I thought, okay, let's see where this can go. And like you said, you know, when you're doing something that you enjoy, it doesn't feel like work. It's that passion, that joy that it brings you, being able to help someone. Things that I make, whether it's a baby blanket or cardigans or toys, I know that everything that I make is going to someone, and it's that personal touch. They're one of a kind. And it makes me feel good that I'm doing something to help someone else, to bring that bit of happiness to them.
I really love the fact it's so inspiring, the fact that you taught yourself for a start. And the way that it just sort of by accident became a business. I just think that's really inspiring. It's just great. I absolutely love it. So, okay, we can take this moment for you to really plug your business. So tell the listeners what your business is, what it's called, where they can find your business.
So my business is called Natty Threads. And you can find me on Instagram, which is natty.threads. My business, essentially, I make crochet items from clothes, toys, accessories, baby mobiles, anything that you desire, I suppose, because people will message me a lot of the time and say, okay, can you make this? And I'll be like, yeah, sure. Always up for a challenge. I'm here. I'm available. Contact me.
and I can vouch for Natalie's stuff because I actually bought something for my grandnephew and it was brilliant. The quality's brilliant, the colours, and my niece said he loves it. I'm always looking at her posts and seeing all of the wonderful things that she makes, and she is absolutely brilliant, so creative. Yeah, you will love her stuff, definitely. So how would you say that you manage doing all of that? Because I can see how busy you are just by looking at your Instagram. How do you manage your symptoms? How do you manage the bad days? You know, I mean, the good thing is that you said that the crocheting doesn't really hurt your fingers and your hands. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine there are still other days where there's other parts of your body in pain or feeling fatigue, etc. So how do you balance all that out with your job, your business, and your conditions?
Let's see. At home, I have about 5 or 6 different body pillows. So I use them at night. I use them in the day if need be. If in particular my legs are giving me trouble, because my knees in particular, my ankles, especially after coming home from work, they can really ache and be really painful. So I have lots of different body pillows. I use physio tape, which really helps me with my kneecaps because they move about and they're more prone to dislocations than most parts of my body. So that helps me. Medication wise, I try to back away from pain relief for the last year or so, because I found that over the years, ever since my diagnosis and even before that, where I've been in so much pain, I'd always, reach for a painkiller and try to help. But as I'm getting older, I've tried to look back and think, well, how long can I keep taking this pain medication for? What's going to be the side effects of me taking this, in 10, 15 years time? So I try to manage my pain conservatively, using the body pillows, using the physio tape, warm baths, warm compresses, tiger balm. Sometimes just distraction methods like my crocheting. I try to keep my legs relaxed if they're really painful, use my pillows, use my rubbings and crochet or watch a good movie. It's not always helpful. Sometimes I do need my pain relief, but when it comes to working part-time, it is what really helps me to manage it, because there's no way that I could work full-time again and still do what I do with my business and look after myself. Something had to give, and that was the full-time work, because it just was not possible for me. I remember practically collapsing at work, just through the sheer pain, because I just kept pushing through it and thought, I've got to keep going, got to keep going. And that was the worst decision, because it literally, it nearly killed me, just having a full-time job. So getting the balance right is what works for me. So part-time working, having all my aids, my rubs and my pillows and all of that, and taking the time to relax and listening to my body. When it's time to stop, you need to stop, because if you push past that certain point, you can really do yourself some damage. And I've been there and done that, and it's not pretty. As I'm getting older, you just have to learn, like, when your body says stop, stop.
Yeah, listening to our bodies is really, really important. Really. Not always easy to do.
No.
Especially when you're trying to get something done and achieve things, but it's a lesson that I've also learned long term and looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So do you ever have days where you've got to get some work done but you just can't do it?
Yeah, I've had days where I know that I need to get things done, and I know I've got a list of things to do, and I think to myself, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'll wake up that morning and I'll be just like, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And inside I'll feel really bad, and I'll almost chastise myself for saying, you know what, why not? Why couldn't you have done it? But sometimes you have to forgive yourself. You've got one body, one life. If I wake up and have one of those days where I feel I just can't go, I have to give into it. I have to listen to myself. I really do. And no matter how bad sometimes I end up feeling, I think, oh, I really need to get started on this order. But there's a reason why my body feels so worn down and why it feels so tired. There's a reason for it. So I have to give myself that rest when, when it's calling for it, I need to do it. So yeah, on those days when I just can't go, I don't go. I just try and rest and really give my body what it needs, because when it comes down to it, if you don't, you can end up making your symptoms worse, and that's not the way to go. It really isn't.
So would you say that what you think, your mindset plays an important part in you being able to manage?
Yes, it really does. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there are some days and I'll say to myself, oh gosh, I wish I could do this and that, and I wish I could do all the things I used to do. And sometimes it will get me down and I feel sad, but then I'll look at all the things that I have achieved and all the things I've done since my diagnosis. So I may not be able to do the exact same things, but I've done more, I've achieved more. And sometimes you just have to listen to that inner voice and don't really give in to the negativity. Because sometimes your mind in itself will tell you, you're not like you used to. And it's about just being true to yourself. Yeah. It's not always easy to be strong-minded and to keep going and to always be your own cheerleader. Think back to all the doctor's appointments and constantly being brushed off, and you're always having to fight your corner. And it's tiring. It really is. It's like going into a boxing ring against an opponent who's 10 times your size, but you have to stick up for yourself. Yeah. And it wears you down. It really does. But there's some days I'll get up and I'll be like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready for that challenge. It doesn't matter what anybody says, I'm going to go for it. And then there's some days you're just like, I need someone else in my corner. I need that extra help.
Yeah. And do you have anybody in your corner? You mentioned the word cheerleaders. Have you got any cheerleaders? I mean, I'm a cheerleader, I must say.
Yes. Do you know what? I've met a lot of wonderful people through Instagram, through my crochet business, and through the Elos Dalos Society as well. And each one of them have become cheerleaders in my life. They really
EDS
have.
UK?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
EDS UK.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's nice to be able to meet other people that have similar experiences and they totally understand the hardship that you've had to go through because they've been along that same journey themselves. So yeah, sometimes you just, you need someone cheering you on from the sidelines, say, you know what, keep going, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Because we could all falter sometimes and feel a bit lost and think, okay, can't do this on my own. But when you look behind you and you've got 100 people still cheering you on, you think, okay, you know what, I really can do this. I can keep going.
Yeah, that's lovely. So is there anything that you've learned about yourself throughout this entrepreneurial journey and just throughout your whole chronic warrior journey?
me see. So for me, I've learned that I'm capable of much more than I've given myself credit for. Because if someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd know how to crochet and that I'd be making and selling items, I would have laughed in their face. There's no way I would have believed it. If someone had told me 10 years ago that, you know, I would have met so many people just through having these conditions and I would be working through it and overcoming obstacles, I never would have believed it. So I've learned that I'm stronger than I realized I was, and I'm capable of so much more. And I'm sure 5 years time, I'll look back on today and not realize, you know, what else I'm capable of. I think it's not realizing that I had this inner strength and that I'm tougher than I realize.
And that's what makes us warriors.
Yeah.
It is, because we think that, well, we're not going to be able to do this, and we can be at a place of losing hope.
Yeah.
However, we just, as you said, dig deep and find that inner strength, and then realize, oh my gosh, I can actually do this, and look at what I've achieved.
Yep. And so much more.
Yeah, and just not giving up. You know, and even if you don't achieve the things that you set out to achieve, it's really just about not giving up on yourself.
That's it. And the fact that we're trying.
Yeah, that's it. Brilliant. I love that. Would you say that there's anything because of your conditions that you think is a little bit quirky or a little bit funny?
I'd say for me, a lot of people, when they meet me, they don't, because for me, it's more of an invisible thing. So most people, when they meet me, they don't really realize that there's anything, air quotes, wrong with me.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll mention it, you know, oh, well, you know, I dislocated this and this, and they'll look at me like, you dislocated what? And I'll be like, yeah, you know, I just have to pop my kneecap back in, you know, so yeah, so it's kind of like the funny looks and things you get. But most people, they're really surprised and they're really interested in learning more about conditions they've never heard of, and they're really appreciative of being able to give that opportunity to learn from people like us. And for me in itself, I enjoy talking about it if people don't know. I really do. So for me, I don't know if it's quirky, but I enjoy explaining about my conditions, how it affects me and what pops out and when and how I manage it. Yeah.
It makes me laugh, you know, even with myself and other people when we just say, yeah, it just popped out. It just makes me laugh. I mean, it's normal for me too, but it always makes me laugh when I hear somebody else say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this pops out, that pops out.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna pop it back in and do a double take, like pop what back in, like they don't even want to hear the word popping out, like.
Oh gosh. So if there are, you know, there's someone like you who maybe is finding it challenging to have a career, is considering starting their own business, working for themselves, but they're a little bit worried about how they would be able to cope with their condition and with running their own business. Do you have any tips that you could give them?
Yes, I would say take it one step at a time. Make yourself a little plan, step by step, because nothing happens overnight. And for me, it was a gradual thing. I didn't set out to create a business. It was literally a coping mechanism. So anybody that wants to start on this journey and they're living with any kind of chronic illnesses or disabilities, take it one step at a time. Write yourself a little plan of what you want to do, stage by stage. And for me, I found breaking things down into smaller chunks and then completing them little by little, that in itself is an achievement. It's definitely taking it one step at a time. And don't do more than what you feel you can manage. Don't feel pressured into trying to take on more. You know, listen to yourself and take it one step at a time.
Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, it's been a really lovely experience talking with you today, Natalie. It's been really, really great. And we've got to know each other a little bit better. And I'm happy about that. Other than thanking you, I would like to end our chat. If you can complete this sentence for me.
I'll try.
Okay. I am a chronic warrior because.
I am a chronic warrior because I feel fantastic. That is my explanation. It seriously is. I feel fantastic because every day I wake up and I'm so glad to still be here. You know, despite everything we've all gone through the past year, living with our chronic illnesses, we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still going, we're still helping each other. And that makes me feel good. It really does. Every day that I'm here is a blessing. And because of that, I do feel fantastic.
That is just a perfect note to end on.
Yay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And please
You're welcome.
enjoy the rest of your birthday. Again, thank you for taking the time out on your birthday.
You're welcome. Anything for you. Seriously.
Oh, thank you so much, darling. And we shall speak soon.
We shall. And thank you so much for involving me in your project.
You're very, very welcome. My pleasure.
You've been listening to the Chronic Warriors podcast. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, and share this podcast.